And I went to him, I said, Mr. Allsburg, I'd like to work for you under this Supreme Court Rule 10. I knew him through my father. And he just got real uncomfortable and he said, we got a tight budget. I don't know if I got that in the budget for you. I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. I'll work for free. He's like, well, yeah, you can start tomorrow.
Easiest sale you ever made, right?
When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into episode 44 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snellings Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. Today, I'm joined by fellow injury lawyer John Griffith, located in Nashville, Tennessee. John started his career as an insurance claims adjuster and quickly realized his passion was with helping injury victims. His work has gained him many awards and recognitions, including Outstanding Trial Lawyer of the Year by the Tennessee Trial Lawyers Association, as well as Best of the Bar Award. John is also a past president of the Tennessee Trial Lawyers Association. He is a big football fan, into Jiu-Jitsu, and making music with his family. John, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Hey, Scott. Thank you. That's very nice of you to ask me to be on your show. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you are very welcome. With a resume like that, I mean, how could I not ask you on?
I'm humbled to be in your presence, my friend. You've always driven me and inspired me. So I'm thankful that our paths have crossed.
Absolutely. And for those of you in the audience, I met John through the Great Legal Marketing Mastermind group, our Icon group. And so we get to hang out in person once every quarter typically. And we talk a lot on the phone and spitball ideas and all that kind of good stuff. So John, give our audience a little background on you. Where'd you grow up and how did you get to where you are?
I am from a very, very small town in Tennessee. I usually don't even mention the town because nobody's heard of it. I'll say the next biggest town, which nobody's ever heard of. But I'm from New Johnsonville, Tennessee. I grew up on the Tennessee River in Middle Tennessee, on the western border of Middle Tennessee. I just grew up like the Dukes of Hazzard. Me and my brother, we were kind of like that. Bo and Luke Duke were kind of our heroes growing up. And we just hunted, fished, spent a lot of time on the river, but there was just a very, very small town. I went to Waverly High School. I love that town. I love the time and era that I grew up in. It was just had that small town community feel where everybody took care of everybody and loved each other for the most part. And
there's always the boss hogs out there, right?
Yeah. Well, the boss hogs saved my butt getting out of trouble a lot of times. I mean, they would go out of their way to help you when you'd messed up. And so I'm very thankful for the officers that we held them in great respect. I mean, it was just like Mayberry RFD. It was a great place to grow up. And grew up in a neighborhood where kids would play outside until in the summertime till 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Your mom would come and yell like, "Johnny, come in, it's time for dinner." You know? And I just have the greatest memories of growing up and playing football and wiffle ball and stuff with all the kids. And, you know, now that you mention it, you just don't see that much anymore. Everybody's got their heads crammed into a darn cell phone. It's just very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I know our call home was the streetlights. So when the streetlights came on, boy, you better be home in about 5 minutes or you were going to be in some serious trouble.
Did you used to ride your bicycle in the bug spray? Did you do that? The mosquito spray? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I never did that. We rode our bikes everywhere, but never in bug spray.
So I'm older than you, but they used to have this mosquito sprayer pulled by a truck, and they would pull it and it would put out massive amounts of toxins. And we would follow behind it on our bikes as kids and just ride in it like it was snow coming out of the thing and just breathe it all in. I just can't believe just hoping and praying I don't get cancer from all that stuff that we breathe in.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that wasn't the only thing that we did as kids growing up that may have later repercussions as well.
Yeah, jumping ramps, and Evel Knievel wannabes and stuff like that. But no, I had a great childhood. And then I had some success locally in high school football and stuff. And I really loved being a football player. And I was arrogant enough to think that I could play in the SEC. I got some offers from smaller schools, OVC schools, Division III schools. But I went and walked on at Vanderbilt and played there for a couple of years. And that was really exciting. But then I got hurt. I tore my Achilles, tore my finger up. I still can't straighten it to this day. It just gives me problems. But, and then I got out to work as a claims adjuster for Progressive Insurance. And that was, I didn't really know, I just unlucked into the job. A friend of a friend had got me the job. I was needing some job. I was working, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I got this job in insurance and did really well at it, excelled in it. I was a young area, not a manager, but under a manager for the
supervisor or something like that.
Yeah. And I had a remote office in Cartersville, Georgia, and I would go all over North Georgia. And anyway, I just didn't like the job. I just knew that it wasn't a long-term play for me. And I just didn't like working for the man. I did not like that. And then I had an incident where, this is part of my story that shaped who I am, but I had an incident where I took advantage of a client with my supervisor and made a really bad settlement for her. She was on Medicare. She called me a couple of days later and said, I've got another bill I need you to pay. And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry, you've signed the release and we don't owe you any more money. And she hung up nicely and she's just a sweet old lady. And then she called me back a day later and said, I let you in my house. I trusted you. I don't know how you sleep at night. And then I didn't sleep that night. And I began to hate my job and realize the big picture of what I was doing. I'm not saying people that do that are bad. I'm just saying for me, it wasn't what my life story wanted to be about. It was just taking advantage of people and saving the insurance company's money. So I hated it, but at the same time, I think it was God's plan for me to do that because it was some of the best training I could have had to jump tracks and now be a plaintiff lawyer on the other side. And so that experience has helped me greatly. And it just reminds me, and I tell my kids, every stage of life, God's got a plan for you. So don't give up no matter how bad you think it is. I mean, obviously I didn't have it terribly. I had a job and I was working hard, but I didn't like it. And so anyway, it was used to do something now that I use every day and a job that I love, a job where I help people. My clients give us, this, Scott, they give us presents. They bake food for us. They bring in cakes. They leave us good reviews. They send us their family members for us to work for them. It's just such a giving job. And every day is different. You walk in the door now, you don't know what kind of case you're going to get. You don't know who is going to be put into your life that you get to meet and hopefully help. And I mean, that's what I love to do. I feel I make my defense lawyer friends mad, but I feel like we do God's work. I really feel that I just have a peace about what I do. I love it. I don't care if defense lawyers hate me. I'm nice and cordial and respectful to them, but if they don't like me, I don't care. I'm not here to please them. They're not paying my bills directly. And so I'm just here to please the people. And I'm just thankful that I do a job where I can do that and have a direct impact on somebody's life. As well as I do that our job is important. Sometimes the difference between somebody being put out on the street and not having a roof over their head and having because of something thrust into their life unnecessarily through absolutely no fault of their own. And now we can help them and they're so appreciative of it. Man, what a great day that is. What a great blessing it is.
It really is. And, there's something to the fact that, we're called the white hats and the other side's called the black hats. It's amazing too how I don't think people necessarily realize all of the issues that come with a personal injury claim. One of the first things that we always deal with is property damage. We don't represent people for property damage. That's not how we do it at our firm, but we're always happy to help them, give them the guidelines. Here's how things work. But they can't get anywhere. Their car's been destroyed. A lot of times there is no rental coverage, or there's no rental vehicles available for them to drive, and they have no way of getting to work if they can work. They have no way of getting to doctor's appointments. And the other thing that they run into, I don't know if it's the same way in Tennessee or not, but if you've been involved in a car crash, the vast majority of doctors will not see you.
That's right. They don't want to be involved. You're
No.
absolutely right. And think about this too, Scott. Let's say you're not hurt in a wreck, and it's a case that we wouldn't take, but if somebody has had their car damaged, not totaled, and they've got to wait 2 or 3 months, they won't get a rental car for a week, they've got to borrow a car or use a spare car, and then they have problems with it and they have to take it back, they don't get compensated for any of that. All that time spent with the adjuster or having to order parts and being just the downtime, they don't get paid for that. The law doesn't allow anything for that. The closest they can get is loss of value in Tennessee. And that's usually, I don't know how, I'm getting on the tangent here, but that's usually 10 to 20% of the cost of repair. So if you got 10,000 damages, they might get a couple of grand extra, but insurance companies fight it like crazy. They hate paying it. And that's something that most people have no idea they're entitled to get in a property damage claim.
Man, I just walked through this with my dad. He was inside a store and somebody ran off the road and slammed into his vehicle in the parking lot and caused about $30,000 worth of damage to the thing. And so I think he just got it back, and it was 4 or 5 months. And he had a rental vehicle for a while, but not the entire time. And so, yeah, I think people don't understand that aspect of it. All right. So getting back to being a claims adjuster, when you were being trained for that job, did you just have a feeling of, I don't know if this is really where my moral compass is? Or did it kind of come later down the line when you started to be trained like, oh, hey, it's on them to defend themselves. You just get the best deal possible for the insurance company?
At first, I was just happy to have a job.
Right. Yeah.
And I got a company car. It was a Toyota Corolla, and I got a cell phone back in 1991 before cell phones were cool, but it was attached to the car. So I had to take the car in to get the cell phone installed, a mobile phone installed in the car.
Yeah, we called those car phones.
Yeah, not a cell phone, a car phone. And so it had a cord on it too. It was just, but I thought I was big stuff going down the road talking on a phone with a cord. I remember thinking I was big stuff. I'd go out on dates with girls and you got a phone in your car? I'm like, yeah.
That's hilarious. So at what point did it start to transition into, man, I don't like doing this. It doesn't feel right to me. Was it just that one instance with the older lady, or did it start happening before that?
No, it was before that. It's just, one of the advantages of being a claims adjuster is I can relate to the claims adjusters. They're not all jerks.
Oh, not by any stretch.
But they're working for the man, and they're between, I always feel sorry for adjusters because they're between a rock and a rock, I always say. They can't please the company by offering something even they themselves know is unfair and unreasonable. I'm like, would you take that for your daughter if she was hurt like my client's daughter was hurt? They said, well, that's a good point. No, I wouldn't. Then why are you offering it?
Right.
Why don't you do something right and fair, and let's get this thing done? And she goes, well, I can't. I don't have authority to do that. So it's been helpful in that regard. But the insurance companies, they constantly pressure these things down, and there was another turning point that I had that I just realized I was in total disgust of my fellow claims managers, I should say, but we had this meeting one time, a company-wide meeting, where one of our claims adjusters, one of my fellow claims adjusters, had a theft of a vehicle reported. So it was a stolen vehicle claim, and somebody had their vehicle stolen. They were claiming all this money to get it for the loss of that. And she had found out that the guy was behind on his payments, that he had a prior theft conviction, and so she called out a SIU special investigator, and they found accelerant in the floorboard. So obviously the car had been torched. When they found the car, it had been torched. And so anyway, they had this big meeting, and they gave her $100 bill for finding the fraud on the theft of this alleged theft of this car. And then they ended the meeting with that, gave her the $100. Everybody claps, and said, "All right, we got about 800 other collision claims or reported theft claims. Who's going to win the next $100? All right, y'all have a good day." And they send everybody off like a pack of wolves, like, "Yeah, I bet this person, our insured, stole this car too, or had it burned themselves too." I'm like, what a terrible outlook to presume everybody's guilty before you start your claims process.
Ooh, yeah.
And I just remember walking away from that meeting. I'm like, look at these pack of rabid wolves eager to prove that this stolen car claim that some innocent lady's turned in, she's responsible for that. And there's a place for that, and I'm not knocking them, but just as for me, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm going to be a glass half full guy. Innocent until proven guilty. I'm going to do my homework and, look for the red flags, but man, I'm glad to be out of that game.
And so when you kind of came to that decision that I'm not going to continue doing this, you had the choice of either going to law school if you wanted to continue to do that on the plaintiff side, or go do some other career path. What made you decide to go to law school?
Actually, at Progressive, I took a tort. They offered a torts class, class in torts, and I took that, and I just ate it up. I loved it so much, and I had watched and worked closely with our local counsel, and pretty good guy, and in Rome, Georgia at the time. I can't remember his name, but I just remember watching a trial one time, and I was just mesmerized by that. My dad was a lawyer, but he didn't do much personal injury work. And so I already had a background in law, but I didn't really think that I wanted to be a lawyer at that point. So I just, at that point, I felt that I would really like to go to law school. So I told Progressive I was going to go to law school, and they said, "Great, we can't wait for you to get out and work for us." I'm like, "Yeah, hold your breath, buddy, because that ain't happening."
Right.
But I just zipped my lip.
Just gave him the old John Griffith smile and moved on.
Yeah.
And so where'd you end up going to law school?
I went to Nashville School of Law. I came to Nashville. I worked for a different insurance company called Grayward General, and at which I'm almost convinced that was a money laundering organization for the Italian mafia. It's no longer in existence, but it was old school. It had this nasty building. People smoked in that building. This was 1994.
Oh, wow.
People were smoking in that building. But I worked there 50 hours a week, 45-ish hours a week, and I went to Nashville School of Law at night, 3 days a week. And that was really difficult. I would hate to have to undergo that again, but it's a great school. Most of the judges around here in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee and all of Tennessee are Nashville School of Law grads. It's got a good reputation here in the state. So it was a school that helped me go when I was later. I didn't start law school till I was 28 years old.
Okay.
I worked as a claims adjuster for a while, so I got a little bit of a later start.
And so how did you manage full-time job and 3 nights a week law school?
I didn't have kids. I didn't have, I wasn't married at the time. So, I had an employee that went to Nashville School of Law, and she was married, had 2 or 3 kids while she was in law school. I'm like, how did she do that? It took her a little extra time to get through, but and I was younger, so
Right.
we can go around the clock, but I couldn't do it now. There's no way. But I respect people who make it through that program.
How long did it take you to get through?
4 years. It's a 4-year program.
Oh, wow. All right. So you graduate there, study for, pass the bar. Are you still working at the insurance company at that point in time?
No, I stopped my 4th year and I started working for my dad. And I was working. One of the best things I did is I started working under the Supreme Court rules in Tennessee. They allow senior law students, which I was at the time, to work under the tutelage of a public defender or district attorney. So I would show up in the 23rd District in Waverly, Tennessee, and I worked for a funny story. There was a guy named Dan Alsabrooks who was the district attorney, and I went to him. I said, Mr. Alsabrooks, I'd like to work for you under this Supreme Court Rule 10. I knew him through my father. And he just got real uncomfortable, and he said, we've got a tight budget. I don't know if I got that in the budget for you. I'm like, oh, don't worry about that. I'll work for free. And he's like, well, yeah, you can start tomorrow.
Easiest sale you ever made, right?
Yeah. I'm like, don't worry about that. I just want the experience. And it was a great experience. So what I would do, George Sexton was the ADA at the time. He later became a judge, a circuit judge. But I would show up, and one day I would watch him try cases, and I sat right beside him, and I thought, man, this is really cool. But I didn't really have to do anything. And then one day I showed up, and I knew we had a trial coming up, a case I had worked on, and he said, he showed up in overalls. I said, don't we have that Davis trial today? And he said, yeah, he said, not we do, you do. And I'm like, oh gosh. I went straight to the bathroom. I about threw up. I was in terrible shape, and I was scared to death. But it went well, and that was the first of many that I was going to try while in law school, which was really cool.
Super cool, yeah.
But those were bench trials, and then I got to try 3 jury trials under his direction, and I would try these DUI cases for the district attorney's office, and then I would get my truck and I would drive to law school, which was an hour and a half away. And school started at about 5:30 or 6. And so I would leave at 4:00 at the end of the day while the jury's deliberating. And I would literally pull in the parking lot, and he'd say, well, unfortunately, we got a hung jury. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't believe that. But then I would go meet my buddies that were hanging outside, just getting ready to go in class. And they said, how was your day? I'm like, great. I just tried a jury trial today. And they're like, what? You tried a jury trial today?
Man, and it's so cool, too, because once you actually try the case, everything else that you do makes so much more sense.
Oh, yeah.
And you had that from the very beginning. And so it's so funny, too, because until you get that first trial under your belt, there is this mystery about it, and it's this big, scary thing. I don't care if you go watch 100 trials. Until you're the one standing up, you're the one having to figure out how to get an exhibit into evidence. You're the one having to figure out what questions to ask the jurors during voir dire. You're the one who the judge is looking at with the hairy eyeball when an objection's been made. But until you actually go through that process, there's just no way that you can have that confidence. And it's scary, man. It is scary.
Right. And that's why they call it the practice law. I mean, you understand it well. You try cases. But what frustrates me more than anything, I mean, the experience plays out well. But there are a lot of lawyers. I'm very familiar with a lot of lawyers who claim to be trial lawyers, and they advertise like there's some big trial lawyers, and the public doesn't know any different. But these guys have either never stepped in a courtroom and tried a case in their career, or less than 2 or 3 times in 25 years, and they've never won a case. They've lost every case.
Right.
I know lawyers who said, I'm never going to try another jury trial in my life, and they haven't, or if they have, they've done extremely poorly.
Right.
And the problem with it, particularly in personal injury cases, is we have great influence and great responsibility as counsel for our clients.
Right.
And the worst thing that could happen to me, in my opinion, is to lead a client into a case and say, you know what, we're going to do better than their offer, and for us to do worse. That would be humiliating for me. So I'm always very aware of that. But on the flip side, what happens 99% of the time is you got lawyers who are actually scared to go to trial. They're going to not share that with you. And then they're going to say, you know, here's an example, a verdict reporter of a case similar to yours, and they got a terrible verdict. Well,
Right.
The truth is most of those are terrible lawyers that are trying those cases, or they're doing something really, really wrong in those cases. I sound arrogant when I say that, but we have good results, and I'm proud of what we do. And I'm convinced with our track record and our winning record and getting great verdicts on whiplash cases, soft tissue cases, whatever type of case, I'm convinced that there's a way to try cases that I've learned over the years that can significantly enhance the value of the case and won't lose the case for you.
Right.
Now, at the end of the day, if your client gets on the stand and is a liar or has got some video of being a fraud and a cheat, you can't overcome that. Juries are smart. They get it.
Yeah.
But they also, I give them credit because they get it, and they can usually see through all of the cherry picking, the cropping out of stuff by defense attorneys, taking things out of context. Context is one of the biggest words I use in trial because everything the defense does is taken out of context. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. I love trying cases. It's part of what I feel like I was made to do. It's fun for me, especially when you've got, which my clients are, but 99% of my clients are great, worthy people. Most of the time I'm having to be the aggressor. Like, please let me file suit. This offer is not fair to you.
Right.
I can do better. Just give me a chance. Let me out of the gate. Let me do what I do to put pressure on them, please. I had this conversation with a client yesterday, and she is just like, I just don't know. I don't want to put any pressure on the family. I'm like, it's the insurance company. You're just saving the insurance company money. That's all you're doing.
Right. And I think that's a big distinguisher too. And a lot of people have no idea about this. They figure out, or they think that, hey, I'm going to go hire John or I'm going to go hire Scott, and they're going to go file a lawsuit, period. Now, sometimes we have to go do that, right? To preserve evidence or to ensure that everything gets moving on the investigative side from the get-go. That's pretty rare, at least the way that we do it. Usually there's some sort of a pre-suit process, the claims process. And that's kind of what you did over at Progressive, it sounds like, where you set up a claim and then you go through a treatment phase and then demands are put together and then negotiations happen usually. And then if that doesn't work out, then a lawsuit is filed. And so I think it's really important for people to know that, hey, just because you file a claim doesn't mean that you're going to be sitting in front of a jury at some point in time.
Right. That's absolutely right. And well, I go further. Even if we file a lawsuit,
right,
which we have to do more in Tennessee because we have a 1-year statute of limitations.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's quick.
So it's one of the shortest in the nation. So, but even amongst the cases that we file lawsuits on, we still settle over 99% of those cases.
Yeah.
And when we go to mediation, we used to settle about 80% of those. Now it's dropped down to about 2/3, 66%. But we usually are offered more money later on. I don't think I've ever walked away from a mediation and been offered less money later. It's usually kept open at a certain amount, or we keep working the case towards trial and we settle for more money later. So,
yeah.
But regardless, we settle 99% of those cases.
And one of the other things too that I'm sure you get this question all the time is, what's my case worth? What's my case worth from the very beginning?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I always tell them that would be incredibly irresponsible for me to answer at this point in time.
You're right. I mean, we're not Jesus. We can't read the tea leaves on what's going to happen. But more importantly, if you give your client a number, a range of number, well, I think it's worth between $150,000 to $180,000. All they're going to hear is $180,000.
Right.
That's all they're going to hear. I don't mean that to disparage my clients, but that's
human nature.
Yeah. Yeah. He said I was going to get that. And then I said, well, that's total. That's not what your net's going to be. There's hospital bills and things got to be paid out of that. So but yeah, what is the value of my case? You know, hopefully you've got a case where you can get full value. There's several times, and I always preach, and I know you do too, the value of uninsured motorist, underinsured motorist coverage, because a lot of people in auto wrecks, there's not enough coverage available. So we're having to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what?
Right. And I got to tell you, man, it breaks my heart almost on a weekly or bi-weekly basis when we have somebody come in, they've been hit by somebody who either doesn't have insurance or has fled the scene and is unidentifiable. And then our client doesn't have any uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And I got to look at them and say, I'm sorry. There is absolutely nothing we can do. We'll check all the boxes. We'll make sure that there's, no other potential coverages out there. If the injuries are bad enough, hey, is there a potential products claim, something like that? But it happens so often. And man, I am an evangelist as well. For anybody listening to this, if you don't know what we're talking about, look at your insurance policy, and you must have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. In Texas, you can have the limit up to your liability limit. So if you have $100,000 in liability, you can buy $100,000 in uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. We call it UIM here. And your liability protects other people. Your first party coverage, the UIM, protects you and your family. And that's not just when you're in your own car. It follows you if you're riding as a passenger in someone else's car. At least that's how it works here in Texas, John. Is that how that works in Tennessee as well?
Yes, it is. It also helps you if you're a pedestrian and get hit by a car, or riding a bicycle in Tennessee.
Exactly.
So you need to have at least 250,000 as your first number, as the per person number. Preferably 500, which is most of the limits in Tennessee. But most people have 25, 50, or 100. Most people around here have 100,000, 100, 300 policies. And that's just not enough. You got a broken hip or you got life flighted, that's $40,000 right there.
Right.
It just is eaten up. It's gone. And it's just, I got a case right now worth well over $1 million. And the most we can get, at least they've got 300,000, but it's just not enough. I mean, just not enough. So what I do is I have an umbrella that's a large umbrella, because I see this all the time.
Right.
You can't go back and get it later. But if you would just call your agent and say, okay, I've got 100,000 right now, what would it cost for me to increase it to 500,000? It's less than $70 a year. It's so cheap, and you can't go back and get it when you need it.
Right.
Like, you got to get it now. And so, I fault a lot of agents for not really pushing that. They're trying to sell policies and get the cheapest one right out the door. It's just, I'd rather be insurance poor.
Absolutely. And, a lot of other people's reason for not carrying more insurance is, hey, I have health insurance. And so health insurance will cover my bills. I don't think what they don't realize is that if you get a settlement, health insurance is going to want their money back.
Yeah.
And they can take every penny here.
Yeah, people don't understand that. They say, why do I have to pay my health insurance back? I say, because you can't get paid twice. If you're in a wreck and you got 50,000 in medical bills, your health insurance pays 50 or whatever they pay. And then the liability carrier has to also pay for your medical bills. The law says, hey, I don't get paid for that twice. You got to pay your insurance company back if it's caused by a third party.
Exactly.
So, yeah, frustrating.
It is. And quite frankly, I don't expect my clients to know that. I talk to lawyers all the time who have no idea what the different insurance policies mean, because that's not their world. How can we expect, John Q. Public, who's out there driving around, to know how insurance works, what UIM is? It's not taught anywhere. And so I know you do as well, but we put out videos, we put out blogs, we put out all kinds of content to hopefully proactively reach people while they're making these insurance decisions, to where I don't have those people coming into the office after a crash that we can't help because they just don't have the right coverage.
Yeah, I preach it all. I put same thing. You and I are same blood. We know this. We see the same thing over and over again. It's just sad. It's just sad that people I want to scream it to the world. I want to put it on a TV advertisement and tell everybody about it and say, I don't care if you call me, but call your agent first and get this taken care of.
Absolutely. All right. So we have not touched at all on you and your law firm. So how long have you had, is it Griffith Law or?
Yeah,
okay.
I was involved in another firm up until 2016. And then I left there had a partner and we had a breakup. Wasn't so good, but anyway, it's worked out well. Came to Franklin. I was in downtown Nashville. Now I live in Franklin, which is 15 miles south. And like my wife, I really credit her. She said, like, why don't you just open an office in Franklin? Why do you have to be in downtown Nashville? It's a terrible drive. You know, traffic's awful. And you're gone. I can't come by and see you with the kids. And so that's exactly what we did. Opened in Franklin, and we just moved to a bigger office in the heart of Cool Springs in mid-December. It's a long time coming, but man, I'm so thankful. I'm so humbled and grateful to be in this building. It's really helped my office space. We got 20 staff and they're all spread out now.
Nice.
They've got room to move, and I can just feel an energy growing since we've been here. And we only had one conference room, and it wasn't extremely large. Now we've got two large conference rooms and one smaller one. But man, this week on 2 days, we've had depositions or mediations going on in every conference room. It's been just awesome.
That is a high energy level right there when you have all that stuff going on. So tell me this, when you started your own law firm, Griffith Law, did you have much of a business background from your previous firm, or were you kind of jumping off the deep end and learning everything from the get-go?
I was jumping off. I mean, I had some experience from being a smaller two-man firm, just general business, but I really didn't understand running a business concepts. I mean, you would have a law firm, I have a law firm, so-and-so may have an insurance agency or make widgets. We're all the business side. You still got to learn how to run your business. And
right.
I've really learned a lot from GLM. I'm very, very thankful for being exposed to Traction, Gino Wickham's book, EOS. That has dramatically changed the two things that I would say to a business person is, number one, don't be afraid to hire a marketing person sooner rather than later if you want to grow your business. And number two,
agree.
You need to, because I put it off for way too long. I wish I'd have done it sooner. And secondly, I would get involved in the EOS, find somebody, me, Scott, somebody who's done this, and get their opinion about why you should do this, and find a great implementer. And you know, it's really taken a lot off of me. Delegate and elevate is one of the themes, but it's we're rock and rolling. We're taking care of a lot of big time issues. You know, you got your rocks, is what they call certain milestones or objectives. And, you know, if you have 20 employees, for example, and everybody's got 3 rocks per quarter, that's 240 objectives a year that's getting done for your business. That's amazing.
That was some amazing quick math, John.
Yeah. Well, hey, anything multiplied by 3 or divided by 3, I can do really.
There you go. Yeah, we're trained in that pretty well. We actually had my EOS implementer on. I have no idea what episode it was, but his name is Curtis Rippey for anybody out there. If you want to check out that episode, I always tell people that's a top 3 business decision that we've made at Snellings Law is not only deciding to implement EOS, but also hiring an implementer to do it. You know, I read EOS back in 2017, or read Traction back in 2017, 2018, sometime around there, and I loved it. Tried to start implementing some concepts, and it went nowhere. And in fact, we didn't go anywhere until we got that implementer in.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of the marketing, why did you wait so long to hire a marketing assistant or marketing director or whoever it is that was your first marketing hire?
I was scared. I was afraid to spend the money. And one of the best things I've done, this is very simple, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's just, I didn't know what my average fee per case is. Hey, we settled, 110 cases or whatever we settled the year before. And what was our income from that, our gross income? So, but when you figure out your average fee per case, then you break it. Let's say your average fee, I'm just going to make a number up, $25,000 average fee per case. And then you know how much you settled last year on average. So it took me a while to believe that, okay, after 5 years of doing business, I'm probably, business, the the train isn't going to stop tomorrow. It's going to keep going just like it has been.
Yeah.
And just trusting that. And that's hard to do sometimes. But I would figure that out. And then like, if how many cases do I need to settle to pay for that person, benefits and everything? So if you're going to pay, I don't know, I'm just making up numbers, $75,000, would that person help me generate another $75,000 per year, another 3 cases per year by doing that? And once you've got that figured out, it's like, well, I don't have to pay it all at once. I can just pay it in 12-month increments in payroll. So if you're paying them $60,000 a year, for example, that'd be $5,000 a month. Like, okay, can you afford an extra $5,000 a month to get this person, to get them to get 1 extra case a month? And so anyway, I explained that much longer than it should have taken.
Well, no, but I think you hit on a couple of really good points there. The first is the mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Do you believe that your firm is going to be sustainable? And if so, what's stopping you from investing further in it? And man, that's scary, because at the end of the day, we can't predict the future. We have no idea. Something could happen. The legislation around here, or the legislators around here, are always trying to do stuff to personal injury lawyers to make it harder on our front. So it could go away. We don't know. But our mindset really dictates, like, okay, what can we control? And all right, there's plenty of cases out there. We just need people to know that we're here, we're really good at what we do, and to call us. And it's our responsibility that they know about us, because we think we do a fantastic job and that they should hire us. And once you change that mindset, and then I think a little success obviously helps to just solidify that, then you start getting into all the data and the metrics, which EOS is fantastic with. We weren't an overly metric-driven law firm either until we got involved in EOS. It was more like, all right, my gut says this. What does your gut say, Rocio, my law partner? And we made a lot of decisions that way, a lot of decisions. And I think that's how a lot of small businesses, whether you sell products, whether you sell services, that's kind of how they start, especially if they don't have a business background like me and you. I didn't have one either. I was a psychology major. And once you reach that point where you can start actually collecting data and metrics and making your decisions, at least with those in mind, man, that is next level.
Yeah. I've strived for uniformity. I mean, what if Martian comes and takes you away tomorrow, this case manager? I need to know, we need to be following the same set of rules for all of us so that we can pick up. I mean, if McDonald's can put another McDonald's in China and have it run flawlessly, can we just get one office running in perfect order, pretty good order, and maybe duplicate it for a satellite office? And so, I'm very process driven. That doesn't mean that we don't have a good culture of positivity and love. I don't want to be just numbers driven. Like, oh, you gotta hit your numbers.
Right.
I really focus on culture as much as anything. But those are these processes, and EOS has dramatically helped increase our productivity, fixing problems. Before EOS, we would have a problem, I would fix it, but we wouldn't implement a process to prevent that from happening again. And so I felt like the guy in the dam, plugging my thumbs in the holes and my feet in the holes. And then another problem comes along and I take it out. And then I got that old hole that starts spouting water again. And I just felt out of control. And now I feel more in control. And my issues are higher level issues. They're not, we're not dealing with the same relatively smaller issues over and over again.
Well, and I think one of the things that when we were explaining EOS to our team and how we were really trying to be process driven, I think it's easy to hear that and say, oh, okay, so you're just going to be a mill. Everybody gets treated exactly the same. They get run through the exact same processes, which I can see. But no, that's not how it works. What we're doing is we're systematizing it to make sure that all the boxes are checked on every single case. And then the lower level stuff is being done almost automatically so that the big brains in the office can focus on what makes each case unique, on strategy, on execution. And I think that is what's really, really helping us to drive forward and just be better lawyers, be a better law firm, and get better results for our clients.
Yeah. And what, Ben helped me with this is like, and making your life more enjoyable at the same time, Scott. For example,
sure.
What are the things that you love to do, the things you do, but you don't really love it that much, and the things you hate doing?
Yes.
And then as a business owner, my goal has been like, get rid of all those things I hate. I don't do any of that stuff anymore, thankfully. And I'm much happier doing that. And I'm a disc profile, personality profile. I'm a high I guy. I'm an idea guy, which invariably means I'm very low on dotting my I's and crossing T's. I'm a good idea guy. But man, you would think as a lawyer, I should be better at dotting I's and crossing T's. But you know what? I've got people for that. I'm good at being a trial lawyer. I'm good at thinking and, strategizing on cases. And that's I just accept that. I don't hate myself for it. I just like, okay, I've got some high C wired people, high S wired people that do that.
Yeah.
And we complement each other, and I don't stress over it so much, and I enjoy my life much more.
Yeah.
The thing about these personalities, like I'm a very high extrovert. My wife is an introvert. We can go to a party, for example. I can get energized by that. I'm like, God, this is great. I've met so-and-so, and he knows my friend Mark. And my wife's like, whew, I'm exhausted. I need to go. It's like too much.
Well, on my end, I am a 9 out of 10 quick start. We figured that out at the last EOS quarterly. And yeah, I'm not allowed to proofread anything. Nobody puts anything on my desk to proofread because I'm the same way. I just kind of glance, it looks good. Looks good. All right, John. Well, we are almost out of time. So last question for you. Give me your 3 favorite books. Fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter.
We need to talk about jiu-jitsu. That's my passion in my life, but we'll do that another time.
All right. We'll get you in studio next time. We'll get you to Dallas and we'll talk jiu-jitsu.
Let's see. My mind's gone blank. My favorite 3 books. I've just finished reading Courtroom Storytelling by Jim Purdue. I can't read like fiction books. I have to read something that's related to the law practice or business practice. There's a book by Hal Elrod, Miracle Mornings by Hal Elrod.
Yeah.
It's a very simple book, but I really credit that with changing my life because I was kind of lazy before and I wasn't reading a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And before I changed firms back in 2015, 2016, I started reading that book and I was just unhappy with a lot of things, the way they were going in my life. And that really, it's just a morning process. It's a morning routine. So now I do it and get up early and go through the 7 steps of that.
It's a great book. Great book.
Yeah. I'm reading the Tennessee Rules of Evidence right now, which is boring, but every other
kind of necessary though.
Yeah, it's just like reading the Bible. Every time you go through it, you realize, man, I didn't realize the rule could be used that way. And the rules of evidence are our spears, our guns. That's it. You can be a very well-respected lawyer, but if you don't know the rules of evidence, there's a guy first year out of law school is going to wear you out in the courtroom if you're not careful.
That's right.
So I always go over those. Free to Focus is a book I'm getting ready to start. That's next on my list. But that's my current reading list.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you again so much for your time and for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next month in the DC area. And thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Driven Crowd podcast. We'll talk to you next time.